Second party in court.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Erica Dontell.
This is the wife. Oh, what? Oh, look at this catwalk. Let's go, Erica. Oh, man. Meagan's face is going to be great. I know it. Look at her walk up to the stand.
Thank you. Raise your right hand and place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that everything you're about to give to court in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Thank you. Get you to state your name and then spell your last name for the court.
Erica Dontell, Dontell.
Meagan. Thank you. What do you do for a living?
I'm a teacher,
What grade?
4th grade.
Are you married?
Yes.
And what's your husband's name?
Christopher
Gonna be
Dontell.
super
And
likable.
Is he the Christopher Dontell who is involved in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you two been married?
10 years today.
Do you have any children?
2.
And were you working back in 2019 into 2020?
Yes, I was in transition. I had left my in-school position, kind of transitioned to working at my sister-in-law's daycare when I was pregnant with Clayton. And then in 2020, I got hired at my virtual school that I'm at now.
Okay. And so let me talk about, well, I'll get to that in just a minute. Was your husband working at that time, Chris Dontell?
Yes.
What was he doing?
His main job was he has a facility maintenance company that does maintenance all up and down the East Coast. And then he also was a deputy coroner for Horry County.
What did he do prior to being a deputy coroner?
He worked for a body transport company that moved deceased bodies for funeral homes and for the county.
Now, thinking back to 2019 and 2020, you mentioned somewhere during one of your answers that you were pregnant with Blake. How old were your children? Or obviously, that's a span of time. How old were they at that time?
Clayton.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Sorry.
So Clayton was born in April of 2019. So he was up to a year, and then Charlie was 3 at the time.
In 2019, 2020, would that have covered the time period of COVID?
Yes.
So tell me sort of what was going on in your marriage at that time.
We were experiencing some difficulties just because like I said, I had left my full-time teaching job and went back to the daycare, which was a good pay cut. And then when COVID struck, then Chris's business with the maintenance company pretty much came to a halt because gas stations and things weren't open like they were. And so that just put a lot of strain on us, and he was working for the coroner's office, and we had our 2 very little kids at home, so he was on calls a lot, so it was just stress and not sleeping with a new baby, so.
So not an easy time.
Correct.
Okay. Do you know the defendant, Meagan Jackson?
Yes.
How did you meet her?
I met her for the first time at the celebration lunch that they had for Chris when he moved from the transport company to work for the county. And then shortly after that, she moved into our neighborhood and we became friends.
Okay. Do you recall about when she moved into your neighborhood?
I want to say maybe like December of 2019.
How far away from you did she move?
Just the back of the neighborhood, like 2 streets over.
Did you know if Meagan had any children at that time?
Yes.
How many children did the defendant have?
4.
Do you know their approximate ages? You don't have to be exact.
I think when we met them, 15, 13, maybe 9 and 8.
Prior to, let me back up. When you first met the defendant, were you and your husband and your children already living in River's Edge?
Yes.
Okay. When the defendant moved into your neighborhood, did your families start hanging out together?
Yes.
When the defendant moved into your neighborhood, was it just her and her children, or did someone else live with her?
Yep, just her and the kids.
Did the fact that this was the period of COVID affect how much time y'all spent together?
Yes, because we would always get together and things, but then once everything shut down, we were at each other's houses every day. Either her kids were at my house or we were at her house every day.
Did you consider her a friend back then?
On this day 5 years ago, yes.
Do you consider her a friend now?
No.
You said that the defendant had 4 children. Did you know who their father was?
I knew of him, but I had never met him, but I knew his name was Greg.
So you never met him, you didn't know him personally?
But there was one time that I think he either picked up or dropped off the kids in the neighborhood and we saw him in the car, but never like corresponded with him or anything.
Did the defendant ever talk to you about her relationship with Greg Rice?
Yes.
Yes, no. Just believe what.
Oh, go ahead.
How did she describe her relationship with Greg Rice?
It sounded very toxic. She mentioned a lot of abuse, and she would say things like, "Oh, I'm going to go drop off the kids if I'm not back in an hour, or send somebody to look for me." It just sounded, she just made it seem very hostile.
When she mentioned abuse, did you ever see any signs of abuse on her? Any bruises, cuts, broken bones, or anything?
No, ma'am.
Did you ever see any evidence that he was abusive other than what the defendant said?
No, just what she said.
Court's indulgence. Can you describe for the jury how big or small a part of your life, your family's life, the defendant became during this time period?
Very big. She literally infiltrated our whole lives, from our kids to our finances to just all areas.
Open face right now.
No, I was waiting to.
Yeah, she just, like I said, we were together pretty much every day, and
What does this
even
mean?
if us grown-ups weren't, like her kids were with my kids all the time. So,
Was the defendant working, where was the defendant working at this point?
Grind Staff Transport, she had taken Chris's spot.
Did that mean that the defendant and your husband worked together quite a bit?
Yes.
At some point, did you become aware that, or were you told that the defendant and your husband were having an affair?
Yes.
How did that information first come to you?
Through a text message from an anonymous website.
Okay.
Curious if we're gonna get there. Have you guys heard of The Other Woman? I don't know if it's like a group within a website or if that's the actual website name, but there's like lawsuits going on there. I've been interested in looking at it. The Dadvocate YouTube channel has been covering the whole saga. But there's like a website out there where you can go and pay for a coaching membership where you get coached on how to be the other woman. And it's just a crazy concept to me, but I'm not kidding. It's like a thing and it's out there. So maybe that's something like this. Why do we look so strange right now? Nothing's happening.
Indulgence, please. I'll give you. Hey, Your Honor, I do have an objection based on 404. Before I see the document.
Well, I haven't moved to admit it yet. I was just showing you what I'm about to show her.
Okay. If you're just going to show me that, then that's right. It's 2 pages. Please.
Your Honor, but actually, before I approach with this,
Hey, Viz said we need more water in the chat. This is getting a little like drama that I never would have expected. Oh, I don't want to freeze frame her on this pose. Let's fix it.
when this
Make her look normal there. Big thank you to Taybiz TV. Guys, check if you just got a gifted membership and make sure you're saying thank you. You know we love Taybiz over here. Taybiz had a stream for Mickey Stein. He's going to be going through the deposition. I believe that was scheduled for 5:45 p.m. Eastern. With the StreamYard stuff going on, did you reschedule that to a different time? Please let us know, because there's been a lot of people saying that they're looking for something new to watch, especially with Karen Reed winding down. So I'm sure if we can get the time that you're going to go live. And let me know if you still have the old link up, because I'll grab the link for it. But is it the right one? Or are you going to make a new stream link? But guys, you know I love Taybiz TV, and he's over here showing love, dropping 5 gifted subs and dropping a 20 bomb. So he's going to make sure these water carafes stay full. Big, big thank you. We're going to get him up here. Let's see. Thank you to our trial drama sponsors. And Mickey Steins, by the way, that is the sheriff who just like was having a quick conversation in chambers with the judge and shot the judge. So that's an interesting one. Don't know if there's going to be an insanity defense at play. Just a lot of crazy stuff, and that's going to be slow to develop. I think that's going to take some time to make it into the courtroom, but okay, perfect. So Taybiz gave us the update. He's rescheduling for tomorrow, same time. So let me get that link then. And let's see, Taybiz. But yeah, imagine you live in a small town and sheriff shoots a judge. Like, I just feel like the whole town's going to be wrecked. Okay, sweet. I see the proper stream. So the link I'm sharing in the chat is the correct stream. Let's see. Taybiz. And that's going to be awesome. I love deposition readings. I just love it. Because the attorneys, guys, if you've never watched or read a deposition transcript, but depositions, you know, in live court, if there's an objection and the judge has the opportunity to overrule or sustain it, with a deposition, the objections can be made, but the answer still needs to be given. And then later, if the deposition needs to be, unless there's like attorney-client privilege, there's like a few things that stop, you don't answer. But typically you'll still get an answer. And at trial, if a deposition needs to come into play for whatever reason, at that point in time, a judge would rule on, you know, whether the objection's valid or not, and whether or not to sustain the objection. And then that answer wouldn't be available to use. So depositions are always extra juicy because that's stuff that would be blocked during live testimony with the witness sworn in on the stand in front of a judge. It's still there in a deposition. So, always love that. That's going to be good. And Taybiz said, I got to have a bourbon and cigar for this trial. Do you mean this one? Or do you mean Mickey Steins? Because I think the answer might be both. This poor woman. Maybe it's cathartic. If you were in her shoes, as stressful as this might be either way, I'm sure this isn't just plainly easy. Do you think this is a cathartic thing to do? Like, get it off your chest on your 10th anniversary? That's crazy.
Describing how big a part of your marriage the defendant became, you mentioned something about finances. Can you tell me what you meant by that?
Yeah, so there were multiple times when she would help us with like groceries. She would show up with groceries. She would go to like Sam's Club or, you know, BJ's or BJ's wasn't around there, Costco. And it was like whatever she bought for her household, she would double and buy for our household. And so she did that a few times. And then like if we would go out, she would like get the bill for us. And then it got to the point where by the summer of 2020, we were in talks of opening a summer camp because that's like my dream. And we were looking at properties and talking about pools. And so we just thought that we were going to be these business partners in this camp that's nothing like anything that's in the area. So that's just.
Now, you said that the defendant had taken over Chris's job. So did you have some idea of the salary that she was probably making?
I'm going to say he was less than $50,000, I think, when he was on.
Did the defendant ever give you any idea of how she was going to afford all of these things, or how she did afford what she actually gave you?
It was my understanding from what she told us that she had inherited money from her parents.
Now, going back to the anonymous texts, approaching you with state's exhibit.
I'm sorry, we need to get a little disruption.
Thank you.
All right.
If you can just look at that. And there's a second page.
Sorry.
Are those some of the are those the anonymous texts you received?
Yes.
Was that on September 27th?
Yes.
So what did those texts tell you about an affair between your husband and the defendant?
That they thought I should know that my husband got somebody else pregnant.
Did it name the person?
Not at first, but then later on, it said, "Oh, and the person was Meagan Jackson."
Was there anything about the way the defendant's name was spelled that meant anything to you?
Yeah. I just felt like it had been. I even told Chris, like, when it came through, that I was like, this has to be somebody that knows her because they spelled her name correctly. Because I've never seen her name spelled that way until I met her. So I feel like if just anybody, I mean, my name's Erica, and people misspell that all the time. So I just felt like you have to know somebody to spell their name correctly. So I knew it had to be somebody close.
Did the text give you any indication of how they were able to find contact information for you?
It said that they found my number on a website. It was like special ed or something, like educational website.
Was there any information about any trips that correlated with any trips that you knew about that your husband took?
Yes, there was. It wasn't like a screenshot or anything, but it was just a flight number and then the 4 names of the people that traveled.
Who were the 4 names, if you remember?
Well, I know it was Meagan, Chris, Savannah, and I think Savannah's friend.
Do you recall what you were doing when you got those texts?
We had dinner plans with my friends, and Chris was on call. So usually when he was on call, we would ride to his car in case he got a call, and then me and the kids would just wait in the car. And so he had just gone into the house when the text message, the first one, came through.
Did they come through over a
Yeah,
period
they
of
were
time?
spread out. Yes.
So what did you do after you got that first one?
I texted him and I said, "I need you to get somebody else to cover this call." And they said, "We have a family emergency. I need you to come out here."
Did he come out?
Yes.
Did you confront him with the text or show him the text?
Yes, and because it was just from like the free site, he's like, "I don't know what this is about. Like, this just must be somebody messing with us. But I'll deal with it after the call. Let me finish the call, and we'll talk about it or deal with it."
At some point, did you and Chris talk to the defendant about those texts?
Yes. So once he, so while we were there waiting for him to come out, I got the text message about that he got somebody pregnant and where they found my phone number. And then once we started driving to the restaurant, because we were just like, we already had plans, and he was just saying like, "I don't know who would do this. Like, who do you think would do this?" And I was like, "I don't know. This is not something I expected." And so we were still going to go to dinner, and then that's when the other message came through that said, and it's Meagan Jackson, and I have proof.
When you first got those texts, did you believe it, not believe it? What was going through your mind?
I was in shock. I was like, I don't know why, like, never saw that coming. I never would have imagined that we would be in this position. And that, so then when he seemed to not know anything about it, then we were just kind of like, okay, well, it didn't seem real. Like, I couldn't believe that it was true.
And so did you and Chris talk to the defendant about these texts?
I believe that would elicit order for everybody that's responsible, Your Honor. So I believe it's the proper question.
I'll allow.
Thank you. Did either you or did you and your husband together talk to the defendant about those texts?
Yes, once the message came through that said her name, that's when I said, "We'll call her. Like, get her on the phone right now." And he did, on speakerphone. And I said, "Why am I getting text messages that say that you're pregnant, and who is saying this?" And she was like, I don't know, I'm getting the kids in the car, I have to call you guys back. And then pretty quickly hung up.
Did you ever have another conversation with her about the texts and who might be sending them?
Later on, there was another time where we were talking, and then she said that she figured it was Greg texting it.
Greg isn't her husband?
Yes.
Did you, based on the text that you received, did you do any sort of research about anything?
Well, I looked up my own phone number because I didn't know what that website was, and I was like, well, how's my number just out for the public? and it came up that it was just my online resume from when I was trying to get a teaching job, so that's where it came from.
Did you look up anything else from the text, or?
Well, later that evening, because we had gotten home from the restaurant and everything, and so then I just started looking up just books about marriage and how to save your marriage, because I just felt like if this was even something that we were discussing, I knew we were having some stress and that things were tight and just overwhelming at the time, but I didn't think that it would be to this point.
Did you do anything to prevent getting those types of texts in the future?
I tried to just block the websites, or the freetext.com, whatever, so that I couldn't get any more, because we talked to Meagan, she thought it was Greg, and so we just figured we'll just eliminate it being able to come through so that we could kind of work on it and distance ourselves from them, because she had mentioned to a few times in the past just that Greg was very not protective, that's not the word I want to use, but anytime she got close to somebody, he would cause problems, and that he had accused her in the past of having affairs with men from the funeral homes and things, and so
Is that the pattern? Is that a type?
So what did you said you tried to block it, did you do anything else? Did you keep your phone?
Yes, well, I kept, because I had two phones at the time because I was in the process of trying to get a new teaching job, and so I had gotten a phone number with a South Carolina number because I figured if I'm applying for jobs, it might not look as good if you have an out-of-state phone number, because I've learned that it's all who you know, and so I wanted to look like I was local and I was here and ready to work, and so at that time I had two phones, and then I just kind of stopped using that one, and then Chris did take my phone to see if he could track who or where the message came from with somebody that he worked with at the police department, I think.
Okay. Now you said the defendant had told you that in the past, Greg, I guess, was assertive if she got close to someone.
Yes.
How long had the defendant been in your life at that point?
So if that was September, just since she moved in December, so less than a year.
You testified that you spent quite a bit of time with her.
Yes.
Had you ever had any issues with Greg up to that point?
We had never met him or anything. Usually, just from the stories that she told us and how, she claimed it was so bad. It's if we knew that he was coming to get the kids or whatever, then we would leave. We're well, we don't want to be here, and we would leave if we knew, or she would leave to take the kids where they had to go.
Other than the defendant's own words, did you ever have any evidence that Greg Rice was abusive or inappropriate?
No, just what she told me.
So I don't know the term for it. You move in, or you succubus a couple and then specifically start sleeping with one of them. You're having relationship problems, you confide in a couple, and then you start sleeping with, in this case, the husband of the couple.
I'm approaching with what's been marked State's Exhibit 99. And there are some email addresses listed under the 2. Can you read the addresses out loud and tell me if you know who they belong to?
EricaDelangelo@gmail.com, Mrs. Dontell at gmail.com.
And whose email addresses are those?
Those are both mine.
Okay.
Colton's mom at gmail.com. Delangelo2@AOL.com. Colton's, sorry, I can't see. mommycoupons at gmail.com, and then Aaron Benford 53114 at gmail.com.
Whose email addresses are those?
My family. So it's got my sisters and my dad.
Your sisters, plural?
My one sister, but it's multiple emails. Yeah.
Just so we're clear, do you recall ever receiving this email?
No, I did not.
When your husband would be on call, would he stay with you, stay someplace else? What was that like?
Yeah, when he was on call, I mean, he'd just be at the house, because his regular job, he worked from our home office, so he was at home until he got a call, and then he'd go on calls and come home whenever the calls were done.
Would he frequently be gone for kind of hours at a time?
Yes.
Do you remember learning that Greg Rice had disappeared?
Yes.
How did you find out?
Chris told me that Meagan called and said that Greg didn't pick up the kids from school.
Do you recall when that was?
I just remember it was a Monday. I guess the first Monday of October.
What did you think at that point?
Objection, false speculation, I believe. That's what she thinks.
I'm asking her what she thought. She's not speculating as to what she thought.
So at the time, based again on conversations that we had, Meagan and I just assumed that based on her prior conversations about how he had a drug problem, that he was on a drug binge or something and just left because she had told me that he'd done that before.
And again, you had spent time not only with the defendant, but also with her children, correct?
A lot, yes.
So did you have any other information or evidence that Greg Rice had a drug issue other than what the defendant told you?
No, everything that I knew about Greg was from what she told me.
I don't have any questions for right now. I mean, Preston Britton is going to ask you some questions.
Oh man. Let's see how he approaches this, Chad. I'm a little anxious about over theatrics, but let's see.
Sorry. Thank you for being here. I know this is difficult for you. When did you, I hate to ask you some of these questions, but
You don't.
are you aware that Chris and Meagan continued their relationship after all this went down? I think in October and November of 2020?
Yes.
Again, I'm sorry. And he was on the 27th of September. Y'all were communicating. He was telling you that you wanted to stay with it and stay in the marriage. And right?
Yes.
You may not. You mentioned a phone call with Chris Dontell and Meagan Jackson. Isn't that right? After you learned about what was going on?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Were you aware that he put her on? He pushed her to make that phone, be a part of the phone call? Did he tell you that?
No.
He didn't tell you she didn't want to do that? You want to be a part of that phone call?
No, because when I said call her, he called her.
Yeah, but you had set that up. He didn't tell you that. Do you recall telling one of the detectives in this case that Chris Dontell called you in the early morning hours of October 3rd and told you we don't have to worry about Greg Rice anymore?
That did not happen.
I get the sense that you seem to want to put a lot in. It's not good. I understand that. Do you put any responsibility on Chris Dontell for his affair with Meagan Jackson?
Absolutely.
You agree that he could have stopped at any point in being inappropriate with her, right?
Yes.
And despite continuing to promise you he was going to stick with you, he continued to engage in acts with her. Isn't that right?
Yes.
You're not claiming to be an expert in anything in terms of forensic, digital forensics or anything? You didn't take any of the anonymous texts that you received and have those reviewed by an expert? See where we come from?
I did not.
Were you aware of how many years Greg Rice and Meagan had been together on and off? Did you learn that during the course of your friendship?
I mean, I know it was longer than Savannah was alive.
We're TV. What? All right, should we try law and crime for this little part? It comes back pretty quickly. Law and crime, Meagan Jackson. What are they doing? Oh gosh, I gotta figure out. Okay, it's easy to switch tabs on Restream. I thought we were gonna have a little struggle session. And their ticker's still running, so it's Court TV that just conked out. Yeah, they use StreamYard too, huh? Oh my goodness. All right, so let's try to find a similar part, and then I'll switch the screen over. Oh, is this redirect or direct? All right. All right, give me a second because this is a bit hard to scrub through. And we'll stick with law and crime for the rest of it.
Dontell and Meagan Jackson. Isn't that right? After you learned about what was going on? Were you aware that he put her on, he pushed her to make that phone, being part of the phone call? Did he tell you that?
No.
He didn't tell you she didn't want to do that? You know, be a part of that phone call?
No, because when I said call her, he called her.
Yeah, but he had set that up. He didn't tell you that. Do you recall telling one of the detectives in this case that Chris Dontell called you in the early morning hours of October 3rd and told you we don't have to worry about Greg Rice anymore?
That did not happen.
Megan's face right here, like,
I get the sense that you seem to want to put a lot in. It's not good. I understand that. Do you put any responsibility on Chris Dontell for his affair with Meagan Jackson?
Absolutely.
You agree that he could have stopped at any point in being inappropriate with her, right?
Yes.
And despite continuing to promise you he was going to stick with you, he continued to engage in acts with her. Is that right?
Yes.
You're not claiming to be an expert in anything in terms of forensic, digital forensics or anything?
No.
You didn't take any of the anonymous texts that you received and have those reviewed by an expert? See where we come from?
I did not.
Were you aware of how many years Greg Rice and Meagan had been together on and off? Did you learn that during the course of your friendship?
I mean, I know it was longer than Savannah was alive, and she was about 15 at the time.
And I think you, maybe more so than many, could speak to the idea that marriage and bonds in those relationships would be very complicated. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Cash money cast with the system, playing the water pouring.
You have been, you didn't have opportunity to be in a room with Meagan Jackson and Greg Rice during their marriage, did you?
No.
Any of these investigators, when they were talking to you, let you know that it had sometime leading up to this, that Greg Rice had been on top of Meagan Jackson one night at their apartment?
Objection, Your Honor. That's absolutely hearsay.
Just saying.
Would you agree with me that just because you don't yourself witness something in a person's marriage doesn't mean it's not going on? Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
And something that happened in the past might not be happening. You know, it could be that their relationship was really bad for 14 years and doing a little bit better in this last year. Would you agree with that? In terms of Meagan and Greg?
Not in terms of them, no. She didn't even refer to him as his name. She called him her baby daddy, her ex.
Okay. And he was both of those things, though, right?
Yeah.
Did y'all, you or Chris feel the need to turn away any of the gifts that she gave y'all?
Not at the time.
You probably wouldn't have.
Yeah.
How can that?
Because she did it at a time when it was helpful to us, when, you know, we didn't have the funds to, you know, just extra laying around. She would just buy us things. As at the time, when you think somebody's your friend, that doesn't seem weird, but now.
All right.
This is giving me another motive idea for Meagan.
Redirect.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just let's go to the last question.
So before we do redirect, I'm thinking in my head, like, if Megan's trying to infiltrate this family and she's already got a foot in the door, if she gets rid of Greg, and Greg is this big, horrible person, and now she has the responsibility of her kids who are already friends with the Dontell children, like, that could be a motive too, like move in and be one big happy family, and Meagan just expects that Erica's gonna be with it. So I don't know. I don't really think that that was helpful for the defense, but that's just me. Let's see what happens on redirect.
And answer, you said at the time her buying things didn't seem odd. Looking back, what do you think of it now?
The amounts that she was putting in, I felt like was more than our other friend. Like the amount, I can look back and see like that probably was a red flag. But like I said, at the time, COVID, the whole world was shut down. We were the only two families that were really hanging out together. We weren't seeing our other friends and things. And so she came across as just trying to help us out.
Do you still think that?
No.
Now, defense asked you, did you know that your husband set up this phone call with the defendant about those text messages? How much time passed between you saying, get her on the phone, and him getting her on the phone?
It was right then and there. At first he was like, well, I'll text her and see. And I was like, no, call her. And he did.
No time in between?
No.
You testified that you put blame on him for this. I'm sure you do.
Yes.
Did you leave him when you first got those text for free messages?
No.
Did you leave him when he was arrested?
No.
Did you leave him when he pleaded guilty?
No.
In fact, you're still married to him, right?
Yes.
Do you know what's going to happen in the future?
No, I haven't been able to talk to him privately for 4 years.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, you may say.
That was important to establish why she might still be legally married.
Right.
Yes, Your Honor. I'd ask that Ms. Dontell be released from her subpoena.
You bet.
Oh,
All right, she's pretty good.
Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we call the next witness, we need to get a break. Some
Oh, so the
scheduling
daughter-
matters. Excuse the jury room, leave your notepads in the jury box. Do not talk about the case here among yourselves. We'll come back out and start.
yeah. She looked and said something to the daughter while walking away. So if you guys haven't been following this trial, this is Savannah Rice. I think she has the dad's last name. I'm forgetting. But she testified. She was the first witness called, and she was really hard to watch on the stand, like just shaking, very upset, talking about like this is a scary thing that happened. Not only do you lose your dad, but he's missing, and then he's dredged up out of a river decomposing. Like not good. And that was a moment of, I would say, solidarity between Erica, the wife of potentially a co-conspirator and or a murderer of her father, as she's leaving the witness stand. So the next witness, if you guys haven't caught on, is going to be Christopher Dontell himself. Do they say something here? Let's see if they say anything before we do that. I think the camera person's just showing around.
All right, anything from the state before we take a break?
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
Anything from the defense?
No, sir, Your Honor.
How long is it? Thank you. All right, let's take about a 10, 15 minute break.
Thank you.